Hi guys, we're here with another episode of the Macros Bodybuilding and Powerlifting Podcast. I believe this might be episode 11 or 10 or 11. We're in double figures now at least, I know that much, which is pretty damn cool and exciting. And what we are going to talk about today, actually, before I say that, I want to say hi Mark, say hi to everyone.
Hello.
Mark is with me again. And we're going to be talking about something very topical, and that is the Olympics. And there's been a lot of talk about the Olympics, at least within kind of the fitness industry field. There's been talk about cupping, there's been talk about winners versus losers, and there's always talk about genetics, how that impacts things, drugs, loads of controversies. And I think it's quite an interesting thing to talk about. I have been watching bits because it's on all the damn time. Actually, something else was controversial. I was talking to Charlotte, my girlfriend, with is the fact that the actual broadcasters, apparently for the females, have been talking about more about their appearance and what they're wearing, whereas the males, it's more about their performance, which I find quite hilarious. Which I probably shouldn't find hilarious, but it kind of is. But I don't think the BBC have been so much like that, and not from what I've noticed anyway. Maybe it's other broadcasters. Anyway, so there's loads of things to talk about. How much have you been watching, Mark? Have you seen a lot?
Actually, not as much as I usually would have. Just not because I'm with a lack of interest, just more being busy, busy with business, clients, and I've just recently had a move into a new gym, so things have been quite busy. Yeah, so I've definitely not seen as much as I would have liked, because I really enjoy the more of the track and field kind of stuff. Really enjoy that. The weightlifting, obviously, I really enjoy watching that. And also the golf is in the Olympics this year, and I'm a keen golfer. But again, I've not seen too much of it at all. So, although I think Andy Murray is doing okay, I think, in the tennis. So I'll maybe catch some over the weekend.
Yeah, I mean, I have not really seen much myself. I think I've mainly seen, well, you can actually switch between, which is quite cool.
Yeah.
But I know we've won some medals at least. We've got some golds, which is fantastic for the UK. But anyway, I think in terms of controversies that we can talk about, I think we'll dive straight into that, and we'll talk about cupping, because I don't actually really know much about cupping. Mark definitely knows more about it than me. But I've seen enough online to realize that it's probably not scientifically backed, and that people are doing it and thinking that they're seeing fantastic results. Maybe it's a placebo, and then there's debates that we can go over into whether that's a problem. Is a placebo effect a problem, or the fact that people think it's helping and they're getting benefits from a placebo and not the actual thing, is that a problem? So we'll talk a little bit about cupping, but I think first of all, Mark can introduce kind of what cupping is. Neither of us are experts in this, so Mark's just gonna. I know you talked about what cupping was to me, and it kind of that's what I thought it kind of was. So I think, but it'll help people understand.
Okay, yeah, and yeah, disclaimer, I'm not a cupping expert or a qualified massage therapist or a physiotherapist. But I mean, what I gather from reading is that the kind of effect cupping would have is where they put cups or any kind of glass on the back of or on a person's muscles, create a vacuum with some heat, and apparently the kind of blood flow that you get to the muscle is supposed to cause like enhanced blood flow to the muscle, and then also like better growth, repair, and strength, and these kind of things. So I guess what they're actually trying to say is you do get some kind of adaptations by using cupping, and it's apparently supposed to be beneficial for sports performance, and I guess just kind of regular gym goers as well. Problem being that, at least to my knowledge, and again, I'm not an expert on this, but to my knowledge, the actual scientific evidence, something that we're quite, we need to see to give it any kind of validation, is that it's just lacking. There's been no science to suggest that cupping would be beneficial for a muscle or give a person any kind of sports performance benefits or muscle growth benefits over somebody who isn't getting cupping. So yeah, as an actual benefit, the science is lacking. But as you quite rightly said, as a placebo, I don't actually see that being such a big problem. If someone's safe in the knowledge that, okay, it's maybe not scientifically backed and they've got that understanding, but they still like to get it done just because they get this placebo effect, it makes them perform better, or it makes them at least feel like they're recovering better, then I don't think it's such a big problem. I think the problem comes when guru types try and sell it to people who don't really know any better. And you'll often see people who will choose cupping to treat back pain rather than going to see like a qualified physiotherapist. And I think that's more where the problems come.
Yeah, I think it is a difficult one, because with a lot of these things, if they're not causing the person any harm, and they're seeing benefit from it, I can't really argue against it.
Yeah.
What you then can argue against is the fact that if they're taking it and the lay public are seeing it, and it's incredibly expensive, or it could potentially even be harmful, or anything like that, that could then be where the problems could emerge. And then, especially like you said, if like bad people essentially then try and market and sell these things, then it becomes a bit of an issue. And I guess it's a little bit, it very much like supplements, in that there are supplements that do work and there's supplements that don't. But the supplements that don't work still get sold, people still buy them, and I'm sure loads of people are seeing a placebo effect with them. And whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, and kind of everything behind that, I think it's very difficult to actually discern it. I think one of the ones kind of I typically see is glutamine, and people take that, they think they're seeing a benefit, but in reality it doesn't, through the scientific, like there's been so many scientific studies that proves it doesn't do anything. And I think as soon as you try and show someone those scientific studies, it will have, well, some people will still get placebo, but I think for us kind of people who are interested in the science, it will just completely stop working. And so then, do you want to do that? Do you almost want that placebo effect? It's really hard, because like the placebo is so powerful. I know there's been a study where there was like a group given a placebo, and the people given the placebo, or something along these lines. I know there was a study where a group of people were given a placebo that they were told was a steroid. They saw ridiculous results. They were then told it was a placebo, and they lost quite a lot of their results, which is just ridiculous. And it shows how powerful the mind really is. And that in itself, I think, is important to talk about, because I know when James Hoffman came over and did his talk on recovery with Renaissance periodization and Mike Israetel, he talked about therapeutic touching, or compassionate touching, which comes off where I made a Facebook post. So it was like, I don't know about cupping, but I've heard about spooning. I prefer spooning, and spooning actually has science behind it, because this compassionate touching, where people, I don't know, I'm doing this as if this is compassionate touching. This is exactly what works. And for people who are listening to this, I'm just rubbing my arms. And essentially, I guess it's just relaxing the brain, the muscles, and in a very similar way, I guess that's kind of what a placebo effect could do. It just causes something in the brain to react and relax and cause positive benefits. A bit like maybe myofascial release with foam rollers. There's not a lot of evidence to say they do anything to the actual muscle tissue, but they do relax the mind. I don't know. That could be something there. I don't know if you've got anything else to say on that, Mark.
I agree. And just talking about placebos, it cannot be understated how strong placebos can be. I don't know the whole story behind Michael Phelps and his cupping experience. And by the way, I'm sure Michael Phelps is not the only person in the world who gets cupping. It's just the name that popped into my head because of his achievements at the moment. So, but I'll use somebody like him as an example. Again, I don't know the whole history, but if for whatever reason somebody like Michael Phelps comes out of retirement, say, and they just happen to get this cupping, this new kind of new to them, they've never had it before, and they give it a try, and then the very next swimming session, he smashes his all-time record. Almost straight away, whether or not you're that kind of person, he could put that record not down to his incredible skill set and power and strength and genetics. He could say that, wow, that cupping that I got last night or the day before or whatever really helped me in the pool today. So straight away, you've got quite a big, you have got quite a big mental pull towards this cupping. And sometimes no scientific evidence or lack of is going to put someone off that kind of placebo, that feeling, that kind of reliability on this, or whatever it is, whether it's cupping or anything else that we're talking about, supplements or whatever.
I think that's so interesting. That's just made me think of something. And I don't know if it's completely related, but the audience might be able to relate to this. And this is like that advert where there's that beautiful woman on the screen and it goes, maybe she's worth it, or maybe it's Maybelline and like that hair product, whatever it is. And it's like, no, she was born absolutely bloody gorgeous and she'd look great without bloody like Maybelline. It's not the Maybelline that's doing it. It's kind of like, it's not the cupping, it's the fact that he's worked his arse off and he's a genetic elite. I think the trouble, and I guess it's similar to like if you've got a lucky t-shirt, lucky underwear, lucky socks, like you wear those and they give you this weird placebo effect. I just find it fascinating. But yeah, you brought up a really good point in that, and that we can probably go on to now is to talk about genetics and how much that can influence things. Something I found very interesting was Charlotte actually went through on this app and it was saying the average height of an Olympic competitor was 5'10". I was like, oh, that's me, which is amazing. But doesn't really mean anything because there's stark differences, like really stark differences. The average weight was 70 kilograms, which is more than 10 kilos less than me. And then you can kind of put in your data and it matches you up to people. And I was like, yeah, I reckon I'll be like a gymnast. I have a similar physique, like I'm built like a gymnast. No. I matched up to like a badminton player, which is just like badminton. It was either badminton or like ping pong or something not jacked and ripped. And I was like, screw this. And then I looked up kind of one of the gymnasts who I think he's called like Dalton. He's American and he's like jacked. And I was like, how tall is he? He's 5'5". Right. Got you. And I just find the whole genetic aspects of kind of sport in general, but more so driven by the Olympics because you see so many different sports. Very interesting. What have you got much to say on that, Mark?
I think, but I think some people are just born lucky. They're just born. They're born to do whatever they're doing in the Olympics. And a lot of the time, even it's not even okay. They've got a solid work ethic. That's a given, and they work hard, they train hard, and everything's kind of in place that should be in place. But a lot of the time as well, it's just God-given talent and great genetics that these people have. And I guess that's why we kind of feel bad sometimes, because we compare ourselves to these people, bearing in mind that they're in a tiny minority of the population, these types. And again, just going back to the whole placebo thing, Olympians don't win gold medals because of their supplement range or because of the clothes that they wear or the fact that they drink Lucozade Sport before a cupping session. That they win gold medals because they are just in that minority of people who were born genetic freaks you might say is a term. They're just better than us. I think I could use a few examples of people, but and whether or not there's drugs in certain sports, I used to be really ignorant to that fact as well. I used to just kind of go along with it, and I think I still give everyone the benefit of the doubt, for sure. But unfortunately, I'm more aware of drug use in sport than I used to be, and it's a shame, really. However, you do still get these genetically gifted people that are natural, clean competitors. I do genuinely believe that. At the elite level, it's hard to say, I guess.
I reckon some of those guys who are doing archery, they're definitely on the steroids. Like their arms are pretty jacked. They're on the roids.
Gotta be.
No, I think something important to say actually on what you spoke about. The supplements aren't what's winning them the gold, which is completely true. But on that same kind of thought process, if they were doing absolutely everything right, they had everything completely kind of bang on, they were training the best way possible, they had progressive overload, they had their nutrition set up completely right, they had everything, then the difference between gold, I guess you could argue, could be that little bit that supplements could give you. So if one person was supplementing better than that other person, then they might just win like out by a second. But for the large majority of the population who aren't these genetic freaks, and they are genetic freaks, like the basketball players who are like 7 foot tall, they're genetic freaks. There aren't that many people who are 7 foot tall. And there's not many people with the kind of like hands and feet like Michael Phelps has. He's insane. They're like their genetics will give them like 50-30% above you, and if you take that small supplement, you might just catch a little bit on them, but if they're taking it as well, they get that as well. So
that's a good point.
It's like, I think it's important to realize how important genetics really are, and that you can try as hard as you want to be the best at something, which is really good. You can be your best, but I do think people have to eventually realize you're never going to be kind of the best something. If you put a lot of time and effort into something and you're not really seeing that result, then you either need to accept that you can get better, but you'll never be the best, or you need to think about maybe doing something else. So for myself, like, I love bodybuilding, but I don't think I'm not the best bodybuilder. I'm never going to be the best bodybuilder, but I absolutely love the sport, and I love the training, and I love everything about it. So I'm going to be my best, which is a great thing in itself. The drugs thing's quite interesting. I don't know if it's whether I prefer being ignorant to it like I really was, or like I prefer knowing, and then it makes me feel a little bit better about myself.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. It's quite important what you said there about kind of being the best version of yourself. And because when you realize that as well, when you realize that I'm not trying to put anyone down or destroy people's hopes here, but when you realize that you're maybe not going to win an Olympic gold medal for a snatch or whatever sport you're in, weightlifting or whatever it is, when you realize that you're not going to be an Olympian and you're not going to challenge at these elite levels, you're not going to earn a whole lot of money and be able to build a financial income to support like a family with your sport or your physique, then it takes a massive weight off your shoulders as well. And just stop comparing yourself to other people all the time, because that's one thing. I mean, I've not so much now. I've got to be honest. I don't do it so much anymore, and I'm being completely honest. I'm in a place where I'm perfectly comfortable with like my own situation. But I have in the past looked at others, people's physiques, even guys that are a lot younger than me. Like they're jacked to hell, they're big muscles, and I used to think like, why am I not like? Why do I not look like that? and for a few reasons. One, probably because I wasn't putting in the same effort that they were at the time. And two, I've just got shitty genetics, and I'm never going to be an elite. But that's okay. And once I realised that, it changed my whole outlook on everything. Changed the way I trained, changed the way that I ate, and just made me a lot more comfortable with kind of my level at the moment. And the things that, like myself and you as well, like what we've achieved and what many others will be watching this have already achieved is freaking awesome. Like, and you should be giving yourself a pat on the back rather than saying, well, why don't I look like him, or I wish I looked like them, when they could just be happy with kind of being like who they are. Got a bit
No,
deep.
that's so important. No, well, yeah, we've talked about the Olympics.
Yeah.
Now we're talking about how to be your best self,
Yeah.
which I guess it is related. But these people need to realize that these guys are really genetic freaks. So like Eddie Hall, I think when he first like stepped into a gym, he was like squatting 200 kilograms. It's like, well, that's really close to my max, and that's probably more than a lot of people's maxes after like 10 years of maybe not 10 years of training, but 5 years of training, or whatever it might be. These people they started up here where you are starting down here, and or not even you, but anyone who is listening to this, kind of, we all have different starting points, and we also have different rates at which we progress. And this is why there are genetic caps and limits to people's progress. But I do think it's incredibly important to always focus on yourself, and maybe look up to people who are more similar to you or had similar things happen to them. So like yourself, like you had cancer and you survived that, which is incredible. Is going to pull you back as a result, because you've accepted that that's not holding you back, whereas some people might not accept it. They'd take it the wrong way and they'd let it pull them down. It's just like, I know I'm never going to be the world's strongest bench presser. I've got a shoulder injury, and other people might have been the world's best bench presser, but they pushed too much and they injured themselves. So there's so many factors at play that you can't think about it too much. You have to, like a lot of things, just focus on the process, focus on being the best you. I think to get away from this subject a little bit, because I think we've kind of talked about it quite well, and I think I hope some people are taking some good points away from it. I thought we might talk a little bit more about kind of the drug aspect, just because we touched on it a little bit. And I think some people might be shocked to hear that we've kind of glazed over it, and that Olympic athletes who are drug tested take drugs, which to some people will sound, oh yeah, of course they do. Whereas other people, like we probably were like a year ago, were like, what? No way. But there are people, and because there's been documentaries, drugs in sport, one I saw recently, and there was this like, he was a 100-meter sprinter, I think, and he got his title taken away from him because he was found to be taking drugs. But he was in the documentary, he was like, I'm still the champion. I'm still have that world record, and every sprinter I talk to still tell me I'm the champion, and they say how it is, because everyone's on drugs and I just got caught. I was unlucky. It's kind of like Lance Armstrong, who also got caught, and he won for years and years and years, and he eventually got caught. And it's just like, what, everyone else is probably doing it as well, because you have to think the amount of pressure they're under to go on and achieve what they achieve is huge. Some of them could even be ignorant to it, which is another thing. But I don't know if you've got any thoughts or opinions on that, Mark.
No, just I'm exactly the same as yourself. And yeah, about a year ago or whatever the time period, I would have been horrified to find out that there was like drugs in the Olympics or any professional sports that I follow. And I'm not exactly sure if it was Lance Armstrong himself who said this, or someone within like the cycling community, the cycling sport, where they kind of suggested if you're not taking drugs, then you're kind of doing yourself like an injustice, because you're never going to be able to compete. And that to me, that was horrifying at the time. I remember the scandal well when everything came out about like just how like specific and detailed and sophisticated the process was with Lance Armstrong, and how they managed to kind of get by even though they were getting tested. And I think it was like blood transfusions after every race, like full blood transfusions, which is amazing to do that in like in a hotel room or back of a car.
God.
Yeah, you're talking absolutely incredible stuff. But the fact that people are actually suggesting, and this isn't just me and you talking about this is people within the sport, the fact that they're suggesting that you're almost at a disadvantage if you don't kind of dope or take drugs is a huge statement. It's quite a shocking statement as well when you actually hear them talking about it. And yeah, you're absolutely right about the pressure that they're under. Maybe, you know, these guys have got sponsorships, like people paying their mortgage for them to go in and advertise, like get on the podium. And they will have, sometimes they've got, I'm not condoning it in any way, but they've obviously felt that enough pressure to go and do that, despite possible health implications. I know that in elite sport, they're probably getting medically checked up, like, you know, blood work done, and they're probably keeping on top of everything to some degree. Whereas, like, you know, people like ourselves couldn't have access to that kind of thing. But still, you know, you're still putting your health at risk. And yet, that kind of pressure, if you can imagine, some people will say, why take drugs? Or I would never take any drugs. It's very easy to say that when you haven't got the pressure that these guys are under. Again, I'm not condoning it. I could never see myself, I've never even considered it for myself, just because I know that everything that I've done is me that's done it. Regardless of like how or I don't have the perfect physique, but it's my physique. I've managed to achieve this physique. And you can't understate how powerful effect drugs have got. It's not like it gives you it's not like you talked about like two Olympic weightlifters, and you know, they're both around the same level, and one has smartly supplemented with creatine, say, and he just edges that like gold medal. So he's got it, and the difference was just that creatine. It's not the same with anabolic drugs, or performance enhancing drugs. They give you immense advantage, not just a tiny little icing on the cake like supplements would, like creatine and what have you. It's a huge difference. So yeah, unfortunately it does happen. And again, I was very ignorant to it before, and it's something I'm a lot more aware of now, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think a lot of people don't realize as well that these drugs aren't, like, a lot of people, when they think about performance enhancing drugs, they think of steroids. They think of steroids as a role of just making you bigger and more muscular. And that might lead people to think, oh, certain sports don't take it or females don't take it, which is not right. Because you can actually take, I don't know a lot about it, but I know there's drugs that just enhance recovery and loads of different aspects as well. So it's not just for that. I would like to kind of go away from the drug aspect again, but more because I just want to leave people with kind of a positive view of the Olympics. And I guess something that is incredibly positive about the Olympics is the fact that it's just clearly showing sport at such a wide level. And I have no doubt there's statistics about this, how more people end up doing sport when the Olympics is around. And it kind of comes down to your surroundings, and the more you surround yourself with like sport, fitness, healthy living, healthy things, I think that can then lead you to improve the way you do things. I find it incredibly inspiring to see the Olympics. I already am well into the fitness industry anyway, but when I see people, especially people who have come a long way, maybe this is like their first time winning a gold, and they've got through tough times. Where I think I actually heard a story about a guy that's almost died and had a seizure, and then came up and they said he'd never be able to, like, I think he was a diver, he could never dive again. But he did, and he went and he won a gold, which was insane. And it inspires me. And I think that is something incredibly powerful about the Olympics, just how seeing these athletes work their absolute arse off. And that kind of comes down to when I saw the meme of like, I think it was someone looking at Michael Phelps, and it was like, winners focus on winning, losers focus on the winners winning. And I don't necessarily kind of disagree with that, because I do think he's a clear winner. There are losers, but I don't necessarily think that being a loser is a bad thing. I think if they can learn from the winner, I just think it comes down to that again, inspiration again, looking at what they're doing. Just like look at all the Olympians and we're like, I want to be a bit more like you. You've inspired me to now go and do something to improve my physique, to improve my health. And kind of, yeah, I think they're good people to look up to in that regard.
That's awesome. I agree. And yeah, very important to distinguish between comparing yourself to someone and not being happy with yourself, and taking inspiration from someone else. They're two different things. There's nothing wrong with getting motivated and inspired by an athlete. I think that's really healthy. And you're right. When the Olympics are on, people are generally, looking at these sports, such a wide variety of sports as well, bound to get people more active into sport in some way. Same with any big event that's on, whether it's whatever it is, but obviously just now the topic is the Olympics. And yeah, it's great. People are outside. If you even look, if you flick to your Instagram feed, everyone's doing Olympic lifts just now on the weightlifting. So it's really cool that it has that effect on a wider audience. And yeah, but difference between having inspiration from these people and finding, like, if that motivates you to go and train, then that's awesome. But it's very different from comparing yourself to them, I think.
Yeah, it makes good sense. I think just a clear example of that was today when I went to a physio today, because I've been having some knee and hip issues, and he was looking at me and he was talking about my hips, my knees and things, and he got me to go into a squat position and stuff, and he was like, you're actually very mobile. And then he went in to show me things, and every time he was going into positions for stretches, for like a squat, anything, he was like, I can't go deep. Like, I've got injuries, my hips aren't the same as yours, our structure's different. Yeah. So when you get into this, you'll be able to go much deeper. And obviously I'm a personal trainer, I understand that. Whereas other people might be like, why can't you go ask the grass, man? Yeah. And everyone has different pelvic bone structures and everything. And that was just a clear example, just right there in my life, where I've seen someone who, you might on the face of it, he's similar weight, and be like, yeah, we should be able to be as good a squatter as one another, but I can actually squat to depth, whereas maybe he doesn't have the structure or the ability to actually squat to depth, so we can't do it anyway. So yeah, I think it's just important to always keep perspective on these things. I don't think I've got much else to say about the Olympics, apart from I'm excited to see continuing everything move forward with it and see how many golds the UK can get. Yeah. How about yourself, Mark?
I'm the same, mate. I'm gonna enjoy watching it this weekend. If I get some time, if my daughter will let me get some time, we'll have it on the background. Yeah, I'm looking forward to watching it.
Awesome. I think the only thing I wanted to intrigue people with was, because it's just come into my mind, and I think we've got a few minutes to kind of talk about this, is that we're because this is obviously the Macros Bodybuilding and Powerlifting podcast, and a lot of talk, and I've talked about it of late, is kind of fat-free mass index and your ability, how far can you go, and there becomes this cap, and a lot of people talk about 25 being the cap. If you are consistent, you work really hard, you do scientific dieting and training, and you have pretty good genetics, you can get to 25 a fat-free mass index, which is a calculation basically based off your height, your weight, and your body fat percentage. Something that Mike Israetel talked about was the fact that this is very much skewed, because a lot of the guys who are genetic freaks will get to this up and then hop on juice, so they don't actually see their full natural potential, because then they take drugs, which basically takes you from where you are and makes you almost like you get almost newbie gains again. It just allows you to keep gaining. Yeah. Which I think it relates to what we're talking about, because it's like the Olympians who are like genetic freaks are amazing, but if they're all hopping on this stuff, then it just gets really dangerous to compare yourself too closely to these people.
Absolutely, yeah. It's one thing. It could be bad enough comparing yourself to a natural athlete who's just incredible anyway, like you said. But to compare yourself to an incredibly gifted genetic freak on drugs, yeah, you definitely should be comparing yourself to these people. And yeah, like just a little off topic, tiny little bit. But when people consider, like we've talked about the pressure that some of these athletes are on to take drugs. Again, people like ourselves, we're not under the same pressure to look or perform in a certain way. So you might want to just think about that as well. If it was something that if anyone was thinking about doing, do you really have to get that kind of level? And if not, then I would consider not doing it.
And what I think that also adds to it, kind of it can inspire people to really reach their own natural limit and don't think about these caps because they're based off maybe not accurate data anyway. So it's really inspiring in a way to just that's what we want to, I think, leave the audience with, is to take inspiration from the Olympics, be your best, push your genetics to their absolute limit. If you want to hop on stuff, then that's down to you and what you want to do. But what I want everyone to really do is be the best they can be. I think that's a really important message that we should leave people with.
Yeah, nice one, Steve. Yeah.
Cool. We'll call it there. I hope people have enjoyed that. The podcast will be on iTunes soon, I promise. And have a great weekend, everyone. Enjoy the Olympics while it's on. If you want any kind of comments, questions about what we've spoken about, please, as always, I might not say it, but do put them in the comments below or find us on Facebook or whatever, and we will cover them for you. So cheers, Mark. Have a great weekend.
Cheers, Steve. You too, buddy. See you guys.
See you, everyone.